I learn a great deal of stuff from you, and that's why I'm so, I seek out guys like yourself, like Jerry Weinstein, because they have all the information. I got to know what you know, but I also can't forget who I am, and that is I'm just a simple dude, and I want to try to make simplicity the key to understanding. And I think that's the advantage that you have, is you still have those young kids that come in there that you've got to work with, and you've got to give them the same type of information that you're going to give your big league guys that you work with. And what I learned is in doing so and doing all these lessons with 8-year-old kids while at Sacramento City College, and having to explain all these movements and all this stuff, and well, as opposed to explaining it, I'm going to put this kid on a beam, and I'm going to have him feel this type of stuff. Instead of throwing a baseball, I'm going to put a stick in the kid's hand and let him hear the sound of where I want this to occur, um, and then flipping it and saying, quite frankly, the key is, if I can't teach an 8-year-old what I'm telling this Missouri Tiger currently, then it's not the right information. It's not the right way to put it. So I've got to teach in a way of whoever I'm with. I'm working with an 8-year-old here, and just give them the simplicity, because with simplicity comes understanding. And when you got the understanding, you're going to attain the action. And with repeated actions done correctly, you'll hopefully find success, and then that success moves on to, well, hopefully a wonderful career. We start out this conversation talking about, what goes around comes around.
Nothing.
It's nothing's new. It's just, yeah. And Will Smith says that as well. He says, hey, read a lot of books, because what you'll find is there's really nothing new. It's just, you're just going to be reminded of what happened. I mean, and, I think at one point we knew that the world was round. We knew it was a sphere. And then we went to it's flat. And then Columbus says, no, it's round. So how did we go from round to flat? And in the baseball world, I'm hoping that we're not thinking of, what's that?
Science.
Oh, well, in science, that, we're not going to get back to the world's flat again.
And then it got you back to round. Incomplete understanding. Misapplication of science.
Yeah. The guys that are out there, that they're not dinosaurs. They're just guys with a great deal of history. And when they, and for many years, even when I was a young coach, I'd say, hey, look at what I'm doing here. And they'd go, well, we did that back in the 40s. And I'm like, okay, and but they didn't have the numbers behind it to say, well, this is what occurs. But it really hasn't changed a lot. It's just we're kind of knowing that we're just coming, instead of blue, it's sky blue. It's powder blue. It's, but they're all shades of blue, Eugene. But I'll tell you, that's probably the biggest thing that has helped me instruct guys nowadays, is I'll hit them with all the information. I'll give them everything that I got and everything that I know on a certain topic. But I always finish it with, and guys, I could be totally wrong. I mean, I could be absolutely clueless on this. And I'll leave it at that. And it's kind of neat to see how young men will look at you and go, well, that sounded so good, but he doesn't even know if he's right. And they go back and they rethink the thing, and then they come back with some ownership of it. And a short story that I have is Luke Hochevar, one of the best guys that I've ever worked with. During his the year that he was going to go back with the Fort Worth Cats, I was at the University of Oklahoma working at my desk, and he came to visit me. And as I'm working at my desk trying to make a pitching plan for our pitchers that day, I hear Luke in the background go, Coach, goals are overrated. And I said, yeah. What do you mean by that? And he says, I can think of getting to Mount Everest, but that doesn't mean anything. I can think about getting to the top of Mount Everest, but that doesn't mean a lick. He says, what's most important is the steps that I take to get up there. So it's not the goal, it's the day in and day out grind of things, of the me taking that step and the next step and the next step. And he goes,
is the disease, the reward is the journey.
yeah. And I'm sitting at my desk and I'm going, yeah, that's good. He goes, well, what do you think about that? And I said, when I turned and I did something that I'll never do again. I turned to Luke, rolled my desk, my chair around. I said, Luke, I said, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's what we talked about 3 years ago. And when Luke heard that, the look on his face, like he had plagiarized, he'd taken something that was, he goes, oh yeah. He goes, you were, and I said, and right then I saw that and I said, hey, Luke, no. I like what you said. That was a lot better. I think you and I, when we talked about it, it was like going from Tennessee to Colorado, and it wasn't it was the each little mile. I like the steps thing, and the reason I tell you that is he took ownership of that so much that he thought of it as his own, and that's probably been the biggest thing in coaching for me is I could care less who they what they think about it, or who gets credit for it. When they take ownership of things, that's where the biggest thing comes about. So telling guys at the end of a top, hey, I could be totally wrong, or while working with somebody, saying, hey, only you know the answer to this, but this is what I got.
And something else that you mentioned reminds me of a story. So 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was out at Vanderbilt with one of my players, and I was there for a camp, like a little, workout. And Dansby Swanson was there at the time, and he was taking ground balls on the field. And I got to chat with him when he was done, and I asked him, what do you think of being here and Coach Corbin? And he's like, I got to tell you, Corbin is amazing, and he's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I said, well, tell me about that. And he's like, well, look, so my first year I came in here and, Corbs is an infield guy, right? Like he takes a lot of pride in what he does in the infield. And, like he was trying to get me to stay in front of everything and two hands. And, like I tried it for a little bit and like, it was really uncomfortable and it wasn't working for me. And I went to him in his office and I was like, Corbs, I was like, can we talk about this? Like, I don't feel comfortable with the way that I'm having to field. He's like, can I make a deal with you? If you let me do it my way and it works, I can keep doing it. And if not, then I'll go back and do it your way. And he allowed me to do it my way. And, that's what's, made me who I am right now. And, like when you look at it, Corbin not only did that, but he allowed Dansby to change his mind. And the next shortstop that he recruited, that kid Kaiser, he recruited because it reminded him of Dansby's fielding style, right? And that it goes to, I heard Service from Creighton give a speech a long time ago on the difference between Latin American and American style infielders. And how Latin Americans are just, on the move, on the run, a lot of one-handed plays because, when you think about it, like, look, if you break fielding into quadrants, you got 25% within your range, 25% charge, 25% left, 25% right. And there's no way to know, like in a game, all the balls, 100% of the balls you field may be all this way or all that way, or, you may never get one ball that's right at you. And only 25% of those quadrants you're actually fielding with two hands. Everything else is on the move. It's on the run. And is it easier for you to reach with two or with one? Is it easier for your brain to take two hands somewhere or to take one? I used to coach teams. So I did college summer ball for a couple of years. I did travel ball, and with my travel ball with the youth, I was running like 11 to 13-year-olds, and I was all in on the one-handed stuff. And the difference in their ability to field and catch and make plays when they're encouraged to, it's almost like they should be taught one hand first and then two hands second, because the two hands is a more refined like transfer, double plays, stuff like that. But in terms of just catching the ball, the one hand is I think way more valuable, and the growth that I saw in players as a result was ridiculous. Like right now, I'm looking at it with my own kids because I have 8-year-old twins and they're playing softball now after a bunch of seasons of baseball. And when they field on the move and on the run and they just use their gloves, like they feel better than all the other little kids because they're able to be athletic and they can actually reach, you know.
I've learned that I've got to encourage my guys to pay attention more and to not be afraid to emulate. You know, and the one thing that you're telling me a story about your little ones. Well, when mine, I've got a 19-year-old that's at Kennesaw State, and back in 2000 and had to be about 2004, 2003, when they were starting to get into the whole scap loading. Scap loading was a big wave of, you know, this was going to be the key to throwing harder, was this scap load. And I used to share a story of, you know, my daughter, who is the best pitcher I've got in my family. I got a sophomore. I've got a sophomore who is 6'2", and he's working on his game. But my daughter, she just hanging out with me at the field, hanging out with me scouting and doing all that stuff. She learned a lot through that emulation process, so much that you know, when I was at UGA and she was throwing in the outfield post the game, a gentleman was telling her, "Yo, you throw like a boy." And my daughter turned to him and said, "No, I throw like a girl." And he says, "No, you throw like a boy." And she says, "No, I throw like a girl." And I kind of looked at the guy and he goes, "Oh," he goes, "Yeah, you throw like a girl." And he looked at me, he goes, "Dude, she's got a good arm." I'm like, "Yeah, well," but she was a little baby, and she had her little binky. You know, she kind of flipped it out, kind of gave it a toss. And I threw it back at her. I said, "Here, throw it to me." And she hit me right in the hands with it. And I was like, "Hey, this is awesome." And I called my wife. I said, "Honey," I go, watch this. She's got the Corral gene. Here, watch." And she throws that thing again, and well, wasn't on location, but pretty good. But when I backed up, and I backed up the distance on her to see how far she would throw that little binky to me, she scap loaded. And I went, you know, that elbow went from just kind of here to now it kind of cranked back. And I'm like, and so for years, I think in 2000, I said, well, scap load's a non-teach. It's a result of increasing what you're trying to do, and that's to throw the ball farther, to throw the ball harder. But yeah, emulating, I think, because I didn't coach up my daughter at all. You know, we would play catch, we would do things. I didn't say, "Hey, get your arm doing this, get your arm doing that." But her being around my guys and her being around the game, it was amazing to see the things that happened with her.
Well, when you think about it, like, you know, the Dominicans, that's what they do. You know, they emulate, you know, greats. And that's what we all did throughout history, right? Like practice of watching great ones and then trying to mimic and do the things that they did the way that they did them. And I find so much value in that also. I actually have a funny, like video series of working with one of our pro groups a couple of years ago. Like, so the first month and a half, we're just doing like movement work. We're not even hitting a whole lot, right? It's like movement work. And then I could tell that they were starting to get burned. So I think it was like a Friday morning session, right? I had 4 guys in, and I have the whole thing on video, even the beginning of the talk. So we're sitting there chatting, and it's early. We're all sitting there drinking coffee. And I say, "Okay," I said, "So today, the only thing that I want you to do, because I know that everybody's getting burned out on the movement stuff, we're going to look at hitters, and we're going to pick hitters throughout the history of the game. And I don't care who it is or how funky it is. And all I want us to do is practice our best version of that."
Yeah.
We're in there. We were there practicing Ichiro and Sheffield and Eric Davis and you know, all these different swings. And there's so much to be said for the emulation, you know, and there's so many good things that can come out of that. especially when you pick certain pieces of movement, Um, and another interesting note on the emulation, I find that like most younger brothers of all the older brothers that I've had all have the same movements and the same issues, right? And it makes sense because their model, the person they're trying to keep up with their whole life is their older brother.
Yeah.
A lot of times they move the same way and they have the same good and the same bad, you know?
What are some of the best batting practice days that, and this goes back to when I was coaching in junior college, our hitting coach, Mike Melhuse. He's a good friend of Coach Weinstein and myself, but I was able to coach with Melly, and one of our best days and some of our best production occurred when Melly would just ask the guys to come in and say, okay, show me your favorite player. Now, I don't want you to show me you. So I just want you to hit like your, and guys stepping into the batting cage and going, hey, I'm George Brett today. And they're doing this swing. And I mean, they're hitting absolute rockets. And one is, I think a lot of it created a lot of freedom in the guys, but it was a great thing for our guys to do. And I think a lot of self-correcting stuff can be done in that manner. But that comes from people that are passionate about their game. Yeah.
And this is a guy that a lot of the time he over rotates, so he's a big muscular guy, but he's super loose, right? So he has a hard time pulling slack out. But these were really stable for him. Like he controlled his center way better than he usually does. Like,
yeah, really nice. I like that. And then when you as you continue to go with that drill, the thing I'm curious about is like the length of that pole. Can that also help with getting guys? Well, if it hits the ground, you did this too much. If you need to let that thing pass through, like for a low 3/4 Randy Johnson type, that stick can't hit the ground. With a guy that you're trying to get more over the top, you're saying, okay, let this pass closer to the ground. I like that. And I think then the next thing will be experimenting with different lengths, but the drill itself, I think is phenomenal. I'm sitting there going, why didn't I think of that? That makes so much
a couple of weeks ago, we did it with one of our guys, and it was absolutely outstanding. Like, so PVC pipe, long and thin, hands in front of the chest. So long PVC pipe facing out that way, and going through their delivery and trying to deliver the PVC pipe to home, but trying to really get it to like bend and like snap like back here, right?
Yeah.
So they had to stay closed. They had to get good trunk rotation, and they had to create good decel. And the movements that got created out of that were really, really good. And I thought of another one, like if you put like a board, like a 2x4, off of this lead shoulder and extend it, and then you tried to hit something with it, the timing of it would be off. It wouldn't be the right move. If you put it off the back shoulder, you'd be too open by the time you hit it, right? That isn't it either, right? And then I'm thinking, you have something in the center, right? And then you think like, what is it? Ancient Eastern, like medicine, and you think, like the Japanese, and you think martial arts, and you think chi, and the center, and everything from here. And then you think like the torso and the weight and the mass. If you take that 2x4 and you put it out from here, and you try to hit something with the center of your body, that's where it is. Like that's where the force and the transition and the delivery, it's got to come from here and match with this. And I was thinking about trying to put like pads on the ceiling so we could take those PVC pipes and like hit the pads. You know what I mean? like so you could deliver. It's almost like right now, so many guys are trying to uh, put the force into their arm or put the force into their body and put the force into their bat instead of putting the force into the ball at the moment of the strike or the moment of the release. And that's where the magic is. That's where at the end of the day, we're trying to transition and produce energy into the baseball, right? Not into our body. It just has to flow through our body. And so many guys with the intent are trying to create it like early and trying to hold on to it the whole time, and they just drag it through instead of like just delivering it at the strike, you know? And when you think bowling, it's the same thing. Like I say often, like bowling and pitching, it's just different planes of motion, but it's the same. When you watch a professional bowler, you don't see them like trying to produce the energy like back here yanking back or back here yanking forward. It's easy and smooth, and then at the end, whack, like that pulling out slack of opposite directions delivers all that force with direction. I have a really good video of working with this kid. So he pitched the championship game for the USA team this last year. He's been coming into us for like, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years. And he has a tendency to move a little bit loose and to yank, right? And I have video of a before drill of him against the wall. And then all I did with him, I gave him a little 4-pound med ball, right? And we backed up and I said, listen, this is going to be freaking weird, okay? Just go with me, okay? This is weird. And I wanted him to bowl. And we practiced bowling like maybe 15 balls, right? And just trying to deliver it hard and straight and flat. And then I have video of the 3 throws that he did after. Oh my God, did he put on the brakes and get across his body? It was unbelievable. Just by like feeling that and practicing that like easy, effortless, and then whack, you know?
Yeah. You know, very, very similar. You know, when my first years at the University of Tennessee, we had a nice indoor over at Tennessee. You know, had that goalposts in it and everything, and before the, you know, obviously the core velocity belt, we worked with a lot of the bungee stuff. And one of the things that was really good that we did to correct some of the movements was those Reebok slide boards. You know, the slide boards that you would get on. Well, we would attach our guys from a goalpost to the back hip and have them go through their delivery with that slide. And guys that did all the other stuff that didn't center themselves, didn't use that aspect of chi and all, and that PVC pipe, that I love what you were talking about, by the way, is that really attacked upper body or oriented, didn't utilize their lower half, immediately would know that action did not keep them balanced, because as the bungee, as they were pulling away from it, and that stride foot hit the end of that Reebok slide board, as they rotated and went through their delivery, they would fall flat on their face because their back foot, or their stride foot would just slide back underneath them. Well, when they learned to do that movement and maintain the balance, where when they finished, they just kind of actually slid back, and they were able to stay on that thing, and the bungee brought them back. They learned that movement. That was a wonderful drill that we used to do, and in like manner, I was just thinking about when you were talking about the bowling and how, you know, all that, even on that surface, and you're tying in that PVC pipe. We used to do the same things, and I'm sitting there going, you know, that was 18 years ago, and I'm sitting there going, why haven't I done that since? So I mean, it's I like everything that you're talking about. I especially like that. I'm thinking right now how I'm going to sit at my house and make a little belt that'll kind of, not a bottle cap, but maybe one of those ends, the bigger ends of that PVC pipe centered at the center of it, so that you can actually place it there and it doesn't slide or doesn't move, but it's centered. and you can do the drill that you're talking about. So I dig that stuff, man, because that's something that will get the movement there. And my 8-year-old son could do that today.